Hello, I'm Dr. Laurie Marker, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to a very special Rossifari podcast for International Cheetah Day. That's right, y'all. As you heard in her intro, Dr. Laurie Marker is back with us for a second episode, and I'm so excited to have Laurie back on the pod. And we're going to talk about all kinds of cool conservation-y things and cheetah-y things and just, all the stuff. There's really not much of an introduction needed when you have one of the most famous faces of conservation back on your podcast. So we'll get to the interview in a second. But before we do, I do just want to drop a couple of quick reminders. All of the standard ones, of course. Make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of these interview episodes or our Friday Zoo News episodes. Make sure that you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, on TikTok at Rossifari Pod. And a reminder that you can support the podcast for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. And then one other thing, and you're actually going to hear us talk about this. I've mentioned this before, but I am now a FAHLO ambassador. So if you are interested in getting any tracking bracelets or tracking plushes or any of the FAHLO brand awesomeness, if you could use the link on my Instagram page, just right up at the top, it will help me out. It'll toss a little money my way. And also, if you use the code Rossifari20, you'll get 20% off your order at myfahlo.com, and that's FAHLO. So just a fun little reminder that especially with holidays coming up, you can do that, and you'll actually hear FAHLO get mentioned by Dr. Marker on this very podcast. So yeah, it's good stuff, y'all. It's very conservation-y. So with all of that said, let's get to it. Here's my interview with Dr. Laurie Marker of the Cheetah Conservation Fund.
I'm based in Namibia most of the time.
Occasionally, anyway. Welcome back to the podcast. It's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
So I have to say it was really funny for those listening. I was at the AZA conference this year, and I was only there for 2 days. Normally, I'm there for the whole thing. And as I was getting ready to leave, I'm walking through the vendor hall one last time, and who do I run into but Dr. Laurie Marker, who immediately looks at me and just goes, "Why haven't I been on your podcast recently?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry." You said it lovingly, of course, but it was very funny. And I was like, "Oh, okay, let's schedule that." So here we are. And I guess my first question for you is just, what do you get out of going to the conference and stuff like that?
Well, I was only at the conference for 2 days myself, so it was good that we were able to see each other. We try to go, and I try to go at least to be at the species survival, the SSP for the cheetah, and to that's really that's always before kind of the whole program starts, but just to see our colleagues, and that's where everybody gets together at one point. And so it's really important for us to keep our associations, and so many of the zoos support the work that we do, that we want to keep letting them know that that's really important. We really do need their support, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was very surprised to see you there, just because you're right. Even though we all go there, we all try to go to those things. I don't know. It just, I don't know. It just caught me off guard, but it was very exciting. Yeah.
The bushwoman was there, right?
I know, right? Well, and that's one of the funny things, because so we did our first interview, and then I've come to a CCF event in Washington, D.C. Then we run into each other in Tampa, and it's just amusing how in this life you're just kind of all over the place, but together.
I know. Isn't that fun? Yeah. We just both said, both of us only got back after we've both been traveling now since AZA and before, but I've been on the road for a couple of months or more. So
yeah, me too.
I do that.
Yeah, and that's actually a big thing I wanted to talk to you about. Is just you tour. There's no other word for it. And as a musician, that's not something that thought I would find in the conservation world. But I'm so curious. I would love to dive into that. And I've been, like I said, we met up at one of your events and it was lovely. But I'm so curious, what makes that worth it and what you guys get from that, both you personally and CCF and all of that.
A lot of it is just making contacts and keeping our contacts engaged, because Africa is so far away from America, and most of our friends and donors come from America, and they're maybe going to come here once, maybe twice in their life, but I'm here all the time, and I can't share everything that I do if I don't see the people that are involved with us, and trying to keep them always engaged and involved in the work that we're doing. So I spent a lot of time trying to, kind of like a Pied Piper, bring more people in to the story of saving the cheetah. And so I've been quite a voice, I think, for a long time, but find that meeting people for me is the best way of keeping people engaged.
That makes a lot of sense. It also, though, and I think this is something that we have in common, which is amusing, along with just the touring thing. But in doing that, you have become a celebrity in this world. Like, you're not going to be on the cover of People magazine per se, though you should be. But I
want to be.
Yeah, right. I know you and a cheetah should definitely be on there. But I'm curious, because I think this is a unique thing to talk about with you, because I know that just with Rossifari, I feel a lot of pressure from that sometimes. And there are a lot of wonderful experiences and the ability to meet someone like you and now be buds and just chat, but also at the same time, weird experiences. And so I'm curious just like what your take on your celebrity is.
Well, I never consider myself that. So I'm just a hardworking bush person, so I don't think on that level, I guess. And I think people are always interested in hearing my stories about cheetahs, but I'm always a little bit shocked when somebody says, "Well, I'm speechless around it." It's like, really? You haven't seen me out there. I mean, if you were out there working with me, you wouldn't be speechless. So, because I am just such a real person, I think I'm a hardworking, real animal person. So, and love to tell my stories about cheetahs. So now rock stars, you're kind of cool.
Oh, hush you. No, but it's really funny to me because what you're saying is true. Everyone I've ever met in the conservation world who is that kind of conservation rock star. And again, I know it's for very niche people, but whether it's you, whether it's Lisa Daybeck of Tree Kangaroos, whatever, when you actually talk to them, it's the same thing. It's just hardworking people, but you become the face of a species to a lot of people. And, and this is a great thing, but like tickets to your events are not cheap, and they can't be because you're touring and you don't want to take money away from cheetahs and all that stuff. But people pay a lot of money to come and see you and meet you and talk to you. And it is an interesting facet of, your career and what you can provide for and to cheetahs, which I think is really cool, but it's weird to think about since it's not what you set out to do, right?
No, I didn't know that I was going to be on tour, over half of a year, actually lecturing and telling the cheetah story. But that's a part of it, which is really important, I think. So I think so few people, when you work with animals, that's it. When you've got a zoo job and you're working with animals, you don't, we do engage with people, but it's not like the zoo's paying your salary. When on a small nonprofit, really, it's the engagement again, and sharing the stories of the cheetahs, because people aren't over here in Africa. They're not seeing what's going on a daily basis, and people don't know that much about the cheetah. They don't know, and maybe it's the fastest land animal, but how vulnerable it is to near extinction, and the processes it takes to actually save them is a big process. And as you know, we have a variety of different programs that all fit into those processes.
Yeah, and I mean, the work you do is amazing. We talked a lot about the basics last time, but catch me up. It's been a couple years. Tell me what y'all have been up to lately.
Well, I think Somaliland keeps me very busy. And we probably talked a little bit about that, although we're based in Namibia, and Namibia is considered the cheetah capital of the world. We have maybe 1,200 cheetahs here in Namibia out of the world population of 7,000. So the world population is not large, and they're living in fragmented areas. So out of 33 populations that make up that 7,000, 20 of those are under 100 individuals. So we've got very, very fragmented populations. So, we're so involved in many aspects, but what we're trying to do is to keep them living free and in the wild. And here in Namibia, we've got programs that revolve around like our livestock guarding dogs, which protect the livestock, and we breed them. And we are model farmers here as well, because we show people that they can farm in harmony with nature and wildlife. Namibia is famous for conservancies where we work with rural communities and the communities where the wildlife is living, and then they become the beneficiaries of ecotourism and are engaged in conservation. So I think Namibia as a country, we are an amazing model for conservation. But up in Somaliland, where we've had to set up a whole base, it's around the illegal wildlife pet trade. And there we've sadly got 100 and nearly 30 cheetahs there that have been caught from the pet trade. And this year alone, we got 30 cheetah cubs in. And the cubs are poached from the wild, coming up from Ethiopia in Somaliland. And so we've had to try to develop programs on the ground that we've modeled after here in Namibia. We've just this year opened our education center. So we had a center that we were able to put cheetahs in large compounds. We've got a veterinary clinic there, but an education center became one of our really key components where we can bring communities in. We can help train wildlife rangers, the whole 9 yards around conservation of the cheetah. And our partner on that is the Royal Commission for Lula, which is in Saudi Arabia. And they've been supporting our work now for a couple years, and helping us develop the education center was a really big thing that's just taken place now.
That's really exciting. That's very cool. Education is so important. I have a question though, and this is, get ready to roll your eyes at me, because this might be a dumb question. But, the conservation programs that I'm associated with deal with a lot of smaller mammals, red pandas being the thing I spend the most time with and stuff. And even though they are terrible ideas for pets, I get the idea behind it. They're small, they're easy to stick in a cage, and if you want to give them a bad life, but whatever, right? Terrible pets, but I understand how an uneducated person could think they would make a good pet. How the hell do people think cheetahs will make a good pet? And what happens when these animals enter the illegal wildlife trade? I'm genuinely curious how that happens.
It's just horrible. I think people, are enamored with wildlife, obviously, with animals, and, having it as a pet, you put it in a cage and you can look at it and it's yours. So there's something about yours. And that education has not gotten through enough on a global scale. But animals like cheetahs should be living out in the wild. They're a predator as well. So when they are found as little cubs, these little cheetah cubs are so little, they can fit in your hand, but they're stolen, poached. And for every one cheetah that might make it into the pet trade, 4 or 5 of them die. And for that one that might make it there, might only have a lifespan of a year or 2, because the people don't know how to take care of them. And cheetahs have very special needs. I think, as we've talked about before, in the wild, they live in huge home ranges. They if you put in a small cage, they basically die of stress factors, disease, malnutrition, all of those things that we run into all the time. And we get the animals as they've been confiscated, and they have been maybe held for anywhere from, a few weeks to, a few months, and they're just malnourished. And so many of them can't be saved because of the state that they come in. So how you get that through, but they purr, they're cute. They're cute little things with spots on them, and they purr. And they're not an aggressive animal, so they're not like a lion or a hyena, so they're not going to eat you, or a leopard. They have small teeth. Their claws are quite sharp. They can bite pretty good. So I don't know why people think that they should be a pet.
That's fair. I mean, obviously we know they shouldn't be, but I can't wrap my head around it, having seen, although I will say I have seen cheetah cubs, and yes, they are absolutely small and adorable. I've been fortunate to see a bunch of them over the years, and they are amazing. But yeah, just what a weird, and then just to end their lives will just end. That makes me sad. But it makes me happy. Well,
that's right. Yeah, education. Right. And it goes along with the other aspects around animal care. I mean, we have domestic animals that if we want an animal, we should take really good care of our domestic animals. And if we're good stewards of the earth, and if we love the cheetah, we would want to love it in its natural environment, which means trying to help people like me save them in the wild. So I keep trying to get anybody who wants a cheetah as a pet to help me keep them living in the wild and really become a supporter of our work.
Yeah, and that is awesome. And is that part of what the education center is helping to create and build, like education on that side of things as well?
Well, Somaliland has never looked at wildlife, had a focus. There's no national parks. There is nothing. And then all of a sudden, there's this crazy American woman who likes cheetahs saving them with the rescue center. And they're saying, what are we doing? We've got people issues. Well, what we found, showing our model from Namibia here, that as we develop our programs, the programs really help the people. And in Namibia, our country really revolves around wildlife, and people come here as tourists, and the tourists pay money to see our wildlife that's living in the wild. And then the communities are engaged in that by having jobs and, being, rangers and nature, providers. I mean, they're out there teaching people about wildlife. And so in Namibia, in Somaliland, there is nothing like that. So we've taken a lot of our programs from here and have adapted them and translated everything into Somali. So we've got a teacher's guide, and we've got student guides. We've got guides for farmers, how to live in harmony with nature. We've developed a conservancy book. And the last couple of years, we've been developing conservancies in Somaliland, which are protected areas that are under communities management. And so the education center will be areas where we can bring in schools, teachers, but we'll focus on rural farmers, teaching them about conservancies and integrated livestock and wildlife management and how to live with wildlife. And then also our capacity building is so great. There aren't like wildlife rangers there. So we'll be working on trying to help the government in developing kind of wildlife rangers and trying to help develop also in the future, we hope, some national parks. So none of that is in the works. And those are all the things that we're actually working on. In order to save the cheetah, we obviously need land and wildlife and people to be engaged to try to stop the trafficking so that cheetahs can live free and on the land there.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Please join me for the Nature Disturbed podcast, a podcast about the good, the offensive, and the confusing parts of the animal kingdom, from the sewers of Florida searching for alligators. Oh no, did I forget to put the bins out? To the surface of Mars, investigating the possibility of life beyond Earth. Sorry, I had some bubbles lodged in my throat. I said, to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, all while interviewing scientists about their research along the way. Do you like comedy, whimsical storytelling, and learning about the natural world? If not, then you'll hate the Nature Disturbed podcast.
I don't know if it's been done before. Maybe it has. But I think y'all are the first organization that I've heard of that has created a successful program in one place and are now transplanting it to a second place and starting over again there. And that's incredible. How do you feel about that? Oh, no, it's not kind of crazy. It's full on crazy. Let's be honest. But how does that make you feel? And like, what was your inspiration for that?
Fired.
Literally the best answer. That's amazing.
Oh, well, I mean, we've been through cheetah hell in the last 8 years and stepping into Somaliland because of the extremes of the pet trade. And what we've done in an 8-year period, it took us 35 years to do so much of that here. But we've got a great model, and using that model, I'm trying to implement it as quickly as possible. But we've also helped develop many other cheetah programs through Africa. So we helped develop programs in South Africa. Our livestock guarding dogs are actively working there under a program called Cheetah Outreach. And we helped found that organization. We helped Cheetah Botswana. We helped found them. And then Action for Cheetahs in Kenya. And all of them are about 25 years old. So they have been, but we've adapted and they're run under their own operations and programs. I'm most probably involved in the Kenya project, which is our Action for Cheetahs in Kenya. But even with that, they don't really have sanctuary animals. They're not dealing with really the human-wildlife conflict to the extent we have undertaken it, or taking care of the confiscated animals. So again, we've linked together our backgrounds and understanding of animal care because the cheetahs do need such important care. And so if they are orphaned, we want to make sure that they get the best care possible. And then from that, we want all animals to live in the wild. So all of our programs are, developed so that we're trying to stop any animal from coming in from the wild. But then we've got reintroduction programs. So we will put cheetahs back into the wild where we can. As you know, 3 years ago, we started the restocking of Indio, where now we've seen, over 3 years, a great success with reproduction on the ground. And we've got 2 now locations that the government has put out and a 3rd location that's coming forward. So it's quite exciting to see that evolve as well. And we have our sights on many other areas where cheetahs could be reintroduced to.
Yeah, no, all of that work is so exciting. And that project is just amazing. Like watching that, I was just cheering y'all on so hard, as so many people were. I think it's really cool that you mentioned that y'all helped with some of these other cheetah programs, because one of the things I was going to ask you is, knowing there are other programs out there, even if you all have the same goals, I am amazed at how often I find competition in the conservation world and egos get in the way a little bit. And I was going to ask it nicer than that, but since I already know the answer, I'm just going to say it's nice to know that y'all are working together and that you guys are helping them out. Because I feel like even though all of the different organizations are fantastic, I feel like, CCF is the big boy of the group, so to speak, is the founder population.
Yeah, but the vision is to help recreate it everywhere, and we're a very small group of cheetah people, especially out in the bush, but we work very, very closely together. And now 1.5 years ago, we had a big global cheetah workshop where we brought people in from, I think we had about 150 people. Almost 20 countries came in, like 40 different organizations. So it was really nice. And we held it up in Ethiopia. But our message was really to start planning the future. We know the past, and so we spent a day on looking at what we know about the cheetah and what their problems are. And then the next 3 days were spent really looking at the future and how we scale up these successful programs that we've worked on. Where can we do the most with the bang for our buck? How do we get more bucks? Again, we can get more bucks by joining arms and showing these big programs are actually working. And not just one project, but large programs. And for cheetahs, we need to also have people involved in the landscapes. We need people involved in antelope because we need to grow the antelope populations. And so cheetahs have something to eat. We have to work with the agriculture people because we don't want the cheetahs eating livestock. They'd prefer to have wildlife. And it's all about management and training. And then also working with the communities. Our community-based programs are really growing. And the more you bring communities in, the communities are going to be the stewards of our land and our wildlife. But then we have to link in livelihood development. And how are people going to live with nature, in harmony with nature? And so looking at, business plans and programs around, again, livelihoods. And we do a lot of different livelihoods here and to look at how they could go to scale. But, one of the simple ones we have is we have jewelry that are made by our local craftspeople, and they're labeled and marketed under our, Cheetah Conservation Fund. And many of our crafts are sold in the zoos. And so that then shows that that's something that's made in Africa, linking back to their zoo cheetah population. But that's small in many respects. But then on another scale, we do here, since we raise our livestock guarding dogs, we actually we have our own farm. And so we make our own cheeses and ice cream and fudge and soap and candles. And we teach this to communities, and communities are also learning that they can have their goat and not just eat it, but you can milk a goat for a couple years, and how to make soap, for instance, or your cheese without even refrigeration. And then on another level, on a bigger scale, we're sustainable here. So we grow all of our own vegetables, which feed not only all of our staff and the visitors that come and visit us, which is really, really important. But we also have a habitat restoration project, which is of a higher scale that most people wouldn't necessarily think about. But through overgrazing on our arid landscapes, we've ended up with a thickened thorn bush, which is taken over. And we harvest that thorn bush and we make a fuel log, which would be quite similar to your Duraflame log over in America, except our logs don't have any additives. So it's a compressed wood. So we harvest the bush, we chip the bush, and we put it through an extrusion process, and it burns with high heat and low emissions. But we now are also looking at using this bush for animal food. We're looking at using it for biochar. We're looking at it as biomass electricity, where you can burn it and makes gas, and the gas goes into fuel your generator. We're solar here as well, but we do have and are using some biogas as well in our generators. And these are the kinds of things that in a rural community, that if we can try to lay out some of these, we call it a three-legged pot over here. You're benefiting your community, you're benefiting your habitat and the environment. And then you've got, a livelihood that can also try to keep your business going.
That's so much. It's so there's so many facets and so many. I just got back from the tree kangaroo workshop in Lincoln, Nebraska. And, the work being done by Safe Tree Kangaroo and the Tree Kangaroo Conservation Program is incredible. But I can't even imagine having something as big and developed. I don't even know how to describe it other than it's like all of the other projects that I talk to, all of the conservation organizations that I work with and admire and love everything that they do are like a small town. And then y'all are New York City. You're just dropping ideas that I've not even heard of from other conservationists. And it's really incredible. Where do you get the idea? And I know it's not just you, but like, how does your team come up with the idea to take this bush that is over harvest, so it's growing and convert it to fuel? And like, you lost me. I thought we were just saving a cheetah. I know that is going to help do that, but where do all of these ideas come from, and then how do you get them to happen?
Well, the biomass program, actually, I lived in Oregon for a number of years. That's where I was at the wildlife safari. And I just kept seeing all these chip trucks going through and thought, well, somebody's making money on chips. And got here to Namibia and the farmers complained, we're going to kill more cheetahs and other predators because we can't kill this bush. Well, how'd the bush get there? Well, from overgrazing. Well, okay. How do you get rid of it? And I went back to my roots in Oregon and started looking at how to do harvest. And then wanted to figure out what kind of product could you make. And so it was an interesting process. We are also along that line, Forest Stewardship Council certified, and I'm a very firm believer in certification. And FSC is the highest level of forest protection. And so everything that we do is around our FSC model, which is looking at the biodiversity. And so everything that we've done is we have to, grid out the land, look at the biodiversity studies on it, and then figure out how much you can harvest, what's the cost to harvest, how much you're going to get off of that tonnage wise. Then when you got that much ton, how did that cost? So it's actually, we put together a whole forestry plan. And then from that, if you make a product, you have to throw in how much your costs are to figure out if you make it, how to sell it. Then what we wanted to do is clear habitat, because if we have more habitat, we can have more grass, we can have more wildlife, and we can have more cheetahs. And then people are being paid to harvest the land. And so for us, it's pretty much a break even. So it's not like we're making any money, but we're clearing habitat, we're putting people to work, and we've got a product.
Just incredible. I mean, that's just such an amazing, like, hearing the process, it's the most logical thing in the world. It's like if I was standing there, I'd have been like, oh yeah, let's do this. Like anybody would do that. But it clearly takes quite the focused mind to get there. Because that's incredible, Laurie. That's truly incredible. I love that.
Well, but then everything takes so much time. So now, over the years that we've been doing this, and we started the biomass program around 2000, and it's taken us years, and the government was all really excited, and they watched us very closely, as did all the universities, and then some of the private businesses, and thought, well, I should try this, and found out that it's not going to make any money, but it clears habitat and puts people to work. But with that, then the government decided that they were going to invest into a biomass electricity plant, which will be at a higher scale, looking at all of the figures that we've used. And we developed a whole biomass system here, a group, which is called NBIG, Namibia's Biomass Association. And now it's just gotten synergy, but it's taken, it took somebody on the ground to say, well, we've got a habitat problem here, and cheetahs need habitat, so let's lay this out. And I think that I try to be an out-of-the-box thinker, so, and I'm always looking at potential opportunities for what could be done, what could bring people jobs, what could bring investment into saving cheetahs.
That's absolutely incredible. Do you get much cheetah time nowadays?
I'm sitting in my office right now, and I'm looking at the cheetahs that are out in our large compounds. And I'm not the one day to day taking care of them, but I am still very active when we have an animal come in. If we anesthetize it, I'm there, helping take blood measurements. I want to have my hands on every animal. This past weekend, I just moved a mother and her 3 cubs to a safe farm for relocation. And so I'm actively involved in some of those aspects still. I can obviously get as involved as I want in the cheetahs every day, but I have great teams of people. And I also say we get great zoo colleagues that come and visit us, both in Namibia and in Somaliland. Just recently, we've got people here from St. Louis Zoo, and we've had people from St. Louis up in Somaliland. We've had people from the Living Desert. We ended up with a group of cheetah cubs that were confiscated, and they were about maybe 10 days old, the youngest really we'd had. And my team there in Somaliland couldn't cope. And I put the word out, and my friends from the zoo at I think Nashville sent their animal carekeeper in. We've had people from Oklahoma City who've sent their maintenance people in to help us build compounds up in Somaliland. So the zoos have been amazing. I'm sure I'm forgetting several of the names of those who have helped us, but it gives an idea of the kind of help that we're getting. We get a lot of help from people over in the UK as well and in Europe. So it's kind of fun to have that kind of help and support. But for me, I think my day is I spend a lot of time on the computer. I'm spending a lot of time doing communications. And that, to me, I think is also critically important.
No, absolutely. That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. That's so
and I still get to write papers. So, I mean, as a scientist, I'm very active still in trying to push our science and on all aspects and making sure that we're, publishing good and conducting good studies as well. We've got a big ecology department and as well as our biomedical department and our genetics team. So
you just don't sleep, huh?
Not a lot, no.
That's fair. So I'm curious, you mentioned that a lot of confiscations come in and they are young cheetahs, right? Because that's what the pet trade is often looking for and stuff. And I know that, they're not always the best outcomes, but sometimes things work out really well and you have a great team working on them. What do you have to do when you have a confiscation come in and, obviously I guess the goal is to rewild if possible and stuff, but talk me through what that process is like.
Well, we this past year in Somaliland, we've had 4 confiscations. We've had 30 cubs come in, and of that, we only lost 2, which is great, but they were pretty much dead on arrival. You can imagine what the other 9 looked like, but they survived. It was a very hard struggle. As they come in, we obviously have to assess what they look like. And from that, usually clean up any wounds that are there. Most all of them have to have some sort of supplementary fluids. So we usually start with sub-Q fluids. Depending on their health state, depending on what point we will collect blood to figure out what we're dealing with, really. And then most of them are come in a starved state, which is really important because you can't overfeed them. So it's called refeeding syndrome, where you have to start them off very, very slowly and hope that they're strong enough to make it through that very slow introduction back onto food. And then just monitor them every single day. We feed multiple times a day when they come in. They are cubs, so some of them have to be put on bottles. Some of them are right at the point that they're ready to be weaned. And so we would then give them, obviously, their meat, and the meat has to be ground, and you have to have the right calcium supplementation. So we have special supplements that come in. All of everything that we have there, medicines, supplements, milk, are all imported from either America, Namibia, Europe. So the zoos also are a big help with us in bringing supplies or donating supplies to us. And so that's really what we go through is in a monitoring program. And then they're monitored depending on their age, if they're young cubs, 24 hours a day.
That's so much work, but sounds really rewarding,
It is a lot of work. And in, over a few, a couple weeks, you're pretty exhausted, but.
Yeah, I bet. When you are doing that with the hope of rewilding, is it like, how do you transition from giving them milk to like a bottle to meat to suddenly sticking them out in the wild? Because I know you wouldn't do that unless they were ready to go. So what's that transition like?
Well, many of the animals that come in and have to be bottle fed are not really acceptable for reintroduction. So animals that come in maybe at and we do most of that here in Namibia. And if the cubs come in at 8 weeks and on, they're hissy spatty, they hate you, and we actually have other areas that are not around people where we will raise these reintroduction animals. And you basically need to get them onto food, and then they're out in areas where they're smelling, they're hearing everything in the bush, and our compounds go from smaller compounds when they're little and they graduate. And then the cats also are all exercised on a regular basis. And we use either a mechanical lure when they're smaller, or when they get into larger compounds, the cats will chase behind a food truck. And even the wild cats, they know the sound of that truck and will track that truck. So they are, they're exercised, they're out and have lived and grown up out in the wild with the sounds and smells that are there. Then the next stage, when we do put them out in the wild, is that we then will collar them and then track them very closely. Oftentimes they need supplemental feed for the first maybe week or two, but because they have grown up with such good senses and good exercise, I'm going to say body and mind health, that they start realizing, I can now chase that steenbok, and whoa, I'm close to it. I can catch it. And then once they put 2 and 2 together, they pretty much are in really good shape. But they're all collared, and we don't just say, oh, that was it. It's a very, very long process of making sure that they are doing well, and then you stay further and further away. With GPS collars, you can track them, obviously, on computers, of which I'll put a plug in with FAHLO bracelets. I don't know if you've.
I'm actually I'm a FAHLO ambassador now. And yeah, so I'm one of the leaders of the Safe Red Panda program, and we just launched our FAHLO bracelets, FAHLO Red Panda bracelets. So yeah, it's an incredible program.
Well, they just launched our Cheetah one. So amazing. You could please be one of our ambassadors too. So.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, we'll be pushing that. Don't you worry.
Yeah, but it's such an easy way that people can then, buy this bracelet, give them to everybody, and then people can be tracking these animals and learning much more about how they're moving. And that's the thing that's so exciting, is to feel that you're a part of a wild animal's life. And I feel like I'm a part of these wild animals' lives, trying to make a life for them, a place for them. And when the farmers tell me that they've seen a cheetah, or I get a lot of, emails, oh, saw a cheetah today, or if they've got a camera trap up, I'll get camera trap pictures. And it means so much to me that I feel that I'm so engaged with the farming, their lives, that they now appreciate cheetahs more and are sharing their visions with me, where I've tried to share my vision with them, which is keeping cheetahs free and in the wild. So.
That's so cool. You're the coolest. I love this so much. I can't even believe that we're coming to the end here. I could talk to you all day. But I know that you are quite busy. So, how can people, other than buying FAHLO bracelets, and if you do so, use the link on my Instagram and use code Rossifari20, and you'll get 20% off your bracelet, and it won't take any of the money away that goes to CCF. But yeah, so how can people support you?
Well, that's lovely. Well, we first say, please go to our website, cheetah.org, and learn all about the things that are going on there. And there's all kinds of ways that you could support us. So obviously donations are taken there. We gladly take those from everybody. Please we really do need help, but you can also like sponsor one of our orphan cheetahs. Right now here in Namibia and Somaliland, we are caring for about 150 cheetahs. We've got the largest concentration and care of captive cheetahs any place in the world. And that costs us a lot. So by doing a sponsorship program, people can also help feed the cheetah and, again, feel like you're a sponsor of one of the individual animals. We have a sponsor of the dog program. So we bred and placed over 800 dogs in a 30-year period, but we've got, we breed and place maybe 50 dogs a year, and people can actually help sponsor a dog to help farmers live in harmony with nature, not just cheetahs, but all predators. We've got our volunteer program, so people can come and volunteer with us here in Namibia. You can come on a safari tour to Africa, and you can go on our website, and that'll soon be up. And you can be a volunteer in America and learn about what we do. We've got several chapters around the country. We're always trying to grow more chapters, and the chapters share information about cheetahs. We're actively involved with them, and they try to help awareness and help raise money to keep us going. So those are ways people can help support us. There's probably other ways, but those are the ones that I'm thinking of right now.
That works. Yeah, I remember, I think it was, 2 years ago now, you guys did a big push for the sponsor a dog program, and we were able to do through Rossifari. I think we ended up sponsoring 2 or 3 of them for a year, and it was great. And it was really nice to be able to make that happen, So.
And you got it with the sponsorship of either a dog or a cheetah, you get a couple times a year an update on what's going on. I mean, actively and personally with your, individual animals. So that's really fun. And thank you for doing that. Please do it more. Maybe get a cheetah. So.
Sounds like a plan. We need a cheetah for the dog to guard, right?
there you go. Yeah, absolutely. So.
All right. So before you go, I need to ask. It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Oh, God. Well, I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to live out in the bush, right?
True.
And, I think a lot of people go on safaris and, they stay at these luxury lodges and things. Well, we've got a lovely lodge here, but I live in my house and office. And we live with wildlife everywhere. And so we keep our doors open, so animals can come and go. It's not for the snakes to come in, but we've got dogs that come and go, and they like to be in their yard. But from that, I think the mice come and go as well. And so are the termites. And just in a cute story, I was just going through my closet where my shirts are hung up. And I noticed at the bottom of my shirts were kind of chewed on. And it turned out a mice was in my closet and chewed on the bottom of a bunch of my work shirts. So I'm really bummed out. Now I have to go out and get my sewing machine and try to sew the bottom of my work shirt so I'm not chewed on by the mice. So how's that for a story?
That's adorable. I love it. Thank you for taking that time to do this. And let's stay in touch. We'll have you on again, and we'll sponsor a cheetah here or something.
That's great. Thank you very much. All the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Come visit us.
Oh, yeah. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Laurie Marker back on the podcast being her awesome doctor-y self. I'm such a huge fan of, conservation in general, obviously, but especially the people who just live it all the time. And I'm not gonna lie, I love that Dr. Marker doesn't really see herself as a celebrity in this world or anything. But if you talk to anyone who follows any of this stuff, I mean, she is very known, and you can hear why. She's constantly coming up with cool, innovative ideas and just making things happen, which is a trait that a lot of people don't have, and one that I find absolutely incredible. Huge fan of that one. So, big fan of Dr. Marker and CCF in general and all of the amazing work that they do. What an incredible organization, y'all. So, with all of that said, I'm grateful to them for being here and being friends of the pod, and to Dr. Marker for wanting to come back on the pod, and also for reminding me that this would be the perfect week to drop this because it is International Cheetah Day on the 4th. And so cool to celebrate on that specific day with this episode. So with all of that said, I do want to say thank you to you all for listening, and to my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, including Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. We'll be back here on Friday with our Zoo News episode, and until then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari, or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.